is something I'd like to share some ideas and thoughts with you. I'm not asking that you believe anything that I say. I'm not asking that you agree with me. I'm merely asking that you stand in and on the conversation that we share with you this evening. And if there's something that I say that can fit and work for you, I say use it. If not, discard it and let it be. Is that all right? Say that's fair enough. Very good. All right, one of the things I've realized, and many of us have, is that if you want something out of life, if you want to change yourself, if you want to acquire something, if there's some goal that you want to reach, that it's really not easy, as some people may make us feel. But living a dream, changing your behaviors, overcoming negative habits, it's challenging, it's hard. But living alone is just very difficult. And once we begin to come to grips with the fact that living is difficult, life is very challenging. I heard a song once by a guy named Dimples called "If It Ain't One Thing, It's Another." I say to you, if it ain't one thing, it's 12 of them. There's always something. You will never, ever have a problem-free moment in life. Somebody says, I like this, and you're either in a problem or you just left one or you're headed toward one. Has anybody found that to be so? Raise your hand if you know what I mean. There's always something. So how do we begin to nurture that hunger? What are the characteristics or the qualities of people who are hungry? What will it take for me to get some of the things that I want by being hungry for those things? Number one, you've got to work on yourself. It's very important that you engage in an ongoing process to develop yourself. Spend more time on yourself than you've been spending. It's very important. You owe that to yourself. I was reading a book by Augmente No Call, The University of Success. I read one line that gave me a chill. I didn't have to read anything else in the book. It said many of us never realize our greatness because we become sidetracked by secondary activities. We spread ourselves too thin, don't know how to say no, and we find ourselves doing all kinds of things, but never, ever have time to do those things that we need to do to work on ourselves. And then there goes a second, and another second, and another second, and we can't stop it. The whole time, before you know it, you wake up one day, and you're behind in your dreams and your bills. So decide that you're going to take some time to work on you. You deserve that from yourself. Your life deserves some prime time because you are creating your own production. As Michael Todd would say, you are the star of your show. You are the director. You're writing the script, and you will determine whether your life is a smash hit or a flop. You determine that. Working on yourself, talking to yourself, that's so very important. Overcoming the negative conversation, that inner dialogue is going on all the time, even when you don't want it to be there. You can't stop yourself right now from thinking. You can't do it. It's going on. So learning how to empower yourself, part of doing that is standing up to yourself. You've got to stand up inside yourself sometimes and say, shut up, you've got to do this. I was going to give a presentation, and this voice inside of me said, you can't do this. You don't have everything it takes. I said, shut up. I'm behind on my bills, and you're telling me what I can't do. I have got to do it. You get scared sometimes. Your mind will go blank on you. Some people will unnerve you, and you wonder, what's wrong with me? Am I crazy? That's why you've got to learn to make a conscious, deliberate, determined effort to stand up inside yourself. Working on yourself, watching that inner dialogue, it will determine the quality of your life. I don't just believe this, I know this. I've had a challenge with losing weight. I'm walking through, and therefore this voice says, why don't you have some M&M peanuts? I say, well, just one. Then after you eat that, the voice says, well, you might as well have a Snickers now, you sucker. I mean, it's challenging. My mother fixed the counter with sweet potato pie. You can't eat with your shoes on. Take your shoes off so you can wiggle your toes and fix your finger. And I think, well, one little bite won't hurt. That voice is constantly their little demons from Colonel Sanders driving my chi in there. I say, no, I'll diet tomorrow. I saw a skinny man get hit by a truck, and I thought if I had a little more weight, he might have lived. You know, some of you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, that voice is awesome. So you've got to stand up to that voice when you're working on something, when you want to achieve something. You have got to stand up to that voice. You've got to sell yourself every day on your abilities, on what you're doing, on the goal that you want to reach. You've got to sell yourself every day, every day, every day. According to your level of belief, it will manifest itself in what you're doing. Whatever we have right now, whatever we're demonstrating in our lives is the result of what we believe subconsciously that we deserve. And part of increasing that belief level is that you've got to convince yourself every day. You've got to sell yourself. I do a lot of training for many corporations and I conduct sales seminars. I've heard all kinds of guys doing techniques, training people in techniques of how to close sales, how to work with them, how to begin to control the sale, how to ask for the close. Let me share something with you. You can learn all the techniques in the world, but if you don't believe in yourself and what you have to offer, nothing will happen for you. I learned all of it. That's why I do a training called Focus on the Seller. You've got to be a seller. And as you convince yourself, as you sell yourself every day, you will begin to see a difference in the things that you're doing. Selling yourself on your ability to perform a job, to achieve a certain objective, telling yourself every day, here I go again. I've got what it takes. This is my day. Nothing out here is going to stop me. And when you go out there, life will come over here and say, well, I'll be back tomorrow. I bring you to the next thing. It takes courage to act. Part of being hungry when you've been defeated is that it takes courage to start over again. I used to do door-to-door sales, and I was working with another friend of mine in door-to-door sales. I mean, it's punishing, it's cruel and unusual punishment. I was a little boy knocking on doors. Hello, would you like to buy a nice working television set? No money down, no damn? The door would slam in your face. And a friend of mine, I was working with him, and they slammed the door in his face too. I looked back, and he was gone. He went to the car. He said, I can't do this. And he sat down in the car and said, you go ahead, I'll be here when you get back. Now, he had a mother and father to take care of him. My mother was ill, and I was hungry. I had to go on. I learned something about myself, that when you step into your fears, somebody said it was Winston Churchill. He said, courage is going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. When you step into your fears and continue to push yourself to go on, something happens for you. It will enable you to transcend yourself. I went to the next door. We'd like to buy a nice working television set. Bam. Went to the next door. Bam. After a while, I no longer took it personally, and I began to play a game. I'd say, well, I know there's a yes out here somewhere, and I'm going to keep on until I find it. And I'm not going home until I do. And I continued to knock on doors, and then eventually somebody would say yes. And I'd ask, are you sure? And I would go in there and I would get the sale. When you have something you want to do, if you don't develop the courage to do that which has been given to you to do, and you spend a lot of time going around trying to convince other people or trying to get their approval, what will happen is that you will lose your nerve, and other people will convince you that what you're doing doesn't have any value. You'll give up on your dream. It's an interesting thing about life. I've also found that if you don't have the courage to act sometimes, and particularly if you have something special to do, life will move on you. If it were not for life, I would still be a disc jockey. I didn't just leave voluntarily to go to the state legislature. I was fired. I was working on a job, and I came home one day. I was married at the time, and I told my former wife, that guy Bert I work for is stupid. She said, if he's so stupid, why does he sign your paycheck? Now you see why the words were right. I couldn't stand her that night. I'd not sleep. Well, here was a guy who was controlling my life. I was going through all kinds of changes because this man controlled my paycheck. And it was Carlyle who said, she who is crushed to earth shall rise again. Winston Churchill said, the truth is incontrovertible. Malice may attack it. Ignorance may deride it, but in the end there it is. And we know the scripture that says, ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. The truth that I had to come to grips with was that I wasn't in charge of my destiny. The truth was that I wasn't giving all that I had. The truth was that there were some things that I wanted to do, but I didn't have the courage to act on those things. And the truth was that Bert was a blessing to me. He made life so miserable for me that I had to start looking at my life differently. I started going to work earlier. I started being the last one to leave. I started working harder than anybody else. The other guys couldn't understand. Why would you work so hard, Les? I said, I'm not working for them. I've been cheating Bert. I've been cheating myself and my family. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, do it with everything that you have. Develop a habit of giving more than what you're paid for. Develop the habit of setting standards by which others will be measured. Someone said, do not go where the path may lead, but go where there is no path and leave a trail. All right, it's easy to be negative today. It's easy to have low morale today. I was at a corporation and they were downsizing and going to lay off some 1,500 people over the next few weeks. It's very depressing there, and those people that stay, 9 times out of 10, they're just going to do just enough to keep from getting fired. Anybody can do that. But if you can begin to harness yourself and say, where I am, I'm going to do the best I can with what I've got, because that is an expression of who I am. If you get into the habit of just being mediocre, it will become a part of your consciousness. If you get into the habit of giving less than what you have within you to give, it will begin to reflect itself in your personality. It will begin to damage you psychologically, and you don't want to be a part of that kind of self-destructive behavior. So you want to set some high standards for yourself. The next thing, part of what feeds that hunger in you, is you've got to develop a sense of urgency. Aurelius said, stop living your life like you have 1,000 years to live, and life you're here today and gone today. If there's something that you want to do and you can't do it all at once, do just a little bit of it. I like what Robert Schuller said, by the yarn it's hard, but inch by inch, anything is a cinch. Do just a little bit of it. A friend of mine, Bobby Kerr, used to be a roommate. Bobby wanted to go into the area of public relations. He loved working with the public. He had a young lady he was going to marry named Clarice. Bobby was a great procrastinator. Pretty soon, the job where Bobby worked transferred him to another location. He went out to celebrate with the people at that new job site, and Bobby suffered a massive heart attack and died. Bobby didn't drink or smoke. He was under 40 and he died. Ask yourself this question: how much time do you have left? How much time do you have left? When you start thinking about that, we don't know. We don't know. Bobby took all the greatness, all the talent, and all of his abilities to his grave with him. One other thing they could have put in parentheses under his name: he didn't use all his stuff. Most of us do that. Most of us don't use the stuff that we brought into the universe. We want to make a conscious, deliberate, determined effort to start living life with a sense of urgency and using what we've got, using ourselves up, sharing what we brought into the universe to share. Because if we don't, nobody else will. Stop wasting valuable time, knowing that if we begin to live our lives as if each day were our last, our lives will take on a whole new meaning, a whole new expression, valuing each moment that we are blessed with. The next thing that begins to nurture that hunger inside of you is your word. Don't give your word out lightly. When you throw your word out there and you don't honor it, it makes a statement about you. If you decide to maintain a sense of integrity with yourself, that if I speak it, I'm going to live it, it's who I am, and I'm going to be very cautious in how I give my word to others. Most of all, with the commitments that I make to myself, because I want my life to reflect my words and honoring who I am and what I express. Another challenging area in terms of nurturing and developing that hunger in yourself is learning the art of becoming single-minded, learning how to concentrate, learning how to focus in. And you'll be surprised at the things that you're able to do when you learn how to block things out, when you learn how to keep your eyes single. You'll be surprised at the ideas that will come to you, the people that you'll be able to attract, the opportunities that you'll be able to see. You begin to see things that have been staying there looking you in the face. I can't believe this has been here all this time. Here's a habit that I do. Maybe it might be of some value to you. I get up in the morning and I start writing. What great ideas can I think of today that can improve me and enable me to reach my goal? Sometimes I just let my mind flow. I write down 15 or 20 ideas, though some days it's more difficult than others. One idea can change your life. One idea can turn your life around. It's all about deciding, but you've got to focus on developing your skills. There was a guy who became the new owner of a baseball team that was at the bottom of the league when he took it over. He went to the pitcher and asked, "What's your best throw?" The pitcher said, "Well, I've got a good curveball and a good fastball." He went on to talk about his different throws, but the owner interrupted and said, "Tell me this, what is your best throw?" The pitcher thought for a moment and replied, "I've got a good fastball." The owner said, "That's all I want you to work on. Nothing else. Just develop your fastball." The next year they went to the World Series. Most people don't know what their fastball is. Most people go through life never discovering what their talents are. Most people never develop their talents. They have skills and abilities, but if you don't nurture them, if you don't develop them, they will never serve you. Your gifts can take you many places if you develop them. Most of us don't like to do the things that come too easy to us. I've always loved talking to people. I decided to take this advice and develop my skills as a seeker, and my gift has developed and grown, taking me to many places. You have something that you brought to the universe, and if you decide that your life deserves you developing what you do well and becoming the best at it, mastering yourself and seeing what you have within you, I guarantee you will never be without. I guarantee that your gifts will take you places that will literally amaze you. If you begin working to develop your gifts, you'll develop a strong sense of happiness. You'll get a larger vision of yourself, because part of beginning to see a larger vision of yourself is finding an area of your life where you can feel competent. People will know when they think of that area, that's something you do. You eat and sleep that. You know it, you know it. You know that you know this. Can you tell? I know. I know what I'm doing. Oh, hello, you know this. So you've got to work on it. When other folks are having a good time, you have to have the discipline and character to concentrate, to read, to digest information. If you decide on a particular area of concern and make a conscious, deliberate, and determined effort to read one book a month in that area, in 5 years, you'll be among the top 5% experts in the world. I read a minimum of 2 books a week, while the average American reads only 1 book a year. If you decide that you are going to master that area you love in this era of accelerated change, overwhelming complexity, and tremendous competition, as you begin to develop and expand your skills, your talents, and your vision of yourself, you will always be in control of your destiny. The next thing is, whatever you want to do it massively. I had a friend who was telling me his sales were down. I asked him, how many phone calls do you make a day? He said 25. I said, double them. Make 50, 75, or even 100 calls. He said, man, that's just too much. I replied, too much? You're behind on your bills and you're talking about too much. You know, one way to get back on your feet real quick is to miss 2 car payments. You're talking about time. There's no competition out here. Decide that you're going to push yourself. Most people won't do that. Most people give up on themselves easily. But the human spirit is powerful. Nothing is more powerful. It's hard to kill the human spirit. Benjamin Disraeli, a man who became the head of a country at a time when Jews were not allowed after 10 o'clock, proved that nothing can resist the will of a people will stake even their existence on the extent of their purpose for good. When you have a made-up mind, when you decide that you want to do something, that's when you see greatness. I read something the other day that said the power to hold on in spite of everything, the power to endure, this is a winner's quality. It's the hunger, the ability to face defeat again and again without giving up. This is the winner's quality. You have that quality within you. When you're hungry, you don't care about the facts. You don't care about the odds. Doug Williams played for the Washington Redskins, quarterback for the team, and John Elway of the Denver Broncos played in the Super Bowl. Everyone was talking about Elway after the Super Bowl, but Doug Williams made a historic passing game. Someone asked him, how were you able to do it in spite of all the negative publicity saying that you couldn't win? How did you do it? He said, I ignored my critics. I just didn't pay attention to them. I ignored myself because they kept on saying it so much. There were times I doubted whether I could do what I needed to do. That's Doug Williams, but there's greatness in you. You've got to learn how to tune out the critics outside and the critic inside. You've got to say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to harness my will and nothing's going to stop me. I deserve this and I'm going to do it no matter what. I told him to start increasing his calls. I said, make 100 calls a day. I've got a count in my ear. You can't see it, but it's there. His sales increased, and he's working harder now. The other thing is, if you want something, you have to be relentless. You have to learn how to be resourceful, how to be creative. When crises strike in your life, in Chinese, the word crisis means both danger and opportunity. This is an opportunity for you to grow, and you've got to be so ridiculous, no matter what comes your way, that you're always looking for ways to get over it. Always looking for ways to break through. Always looking for ways to win. Always looking for ways to strike a killing blow. And pretty soon, I think some people in the universe will say, wait, let's call a meeting over here. That guy, Mustafa, look, hey man, he won't stop. That fool doesn't know you can't get over. Look here. Why don't we do this? Let him go and let's mess with somebody else. Yes, let him go. Life will just give you a cat or a whooping sometimes. Yes, they left. Just let this one go. I believe this. I know it told me this, but I just kept on kicking. I didn't have sense enough to stop. I was intelligently ignorant. I didn't know what I couldn't do, so I just tried anything. The fascinating thing about life is that since you can't get out of it alive, you might as well have a good time, live your life with passion, with some drive. I was giving a seminar the other day, and I mentioned that I was going to do some training in August with some young teenagers. We're taking about 100 of them away to a 2 or 3 day camp and wiping them out. I've been working on this. So after the speech, one of the parents walked up to me and said, Mr. Brown, I'd like you to do something for my son. He's not motivated. I said, I wonder why? I wonder what's wrong with him. He had no fun whatsoever. See, what you do speak so loudly, people can hear what you say. And so if you don't have any fire, you've got to watch the people and relationships that you develop. You need people of kindred mindsets. If you're around folks who are dead and negative all the time, they will affect you. You want people around you who have smiles on their faces looking good. I was telling a group last week, Abraham Lincoln refused to hire guys because of their faith. He said, anybody over 30 is responsible for their faith. If you have some depressing face looking at you every day, it affects your blood pressure. Keep these dead faces away from you. It's contagious. This is serious. So you've got to watch your countenance, watch your face. Have an uplifted expression. Watch your body posture. All of these things affect you psychically. You've got to be the kind of person that is fearless. Fearless folks lead fearless people alone. Now, some people walk into a neighborhood and every dog in the neighborhood will walk out. But there are some people who come through and nobody's going to mess with them. You are unstoppable. And because you are unstoppable, because you've got power that you haven't even begun to use yet, you owe it to yourself to release your brakes. How many of you have experienced pulling out of your driveway when you mashed on the accelerator and the car just wouldn't move? You mashed hard and it couldn't move. And then you discovered you had your emergency brakes on. You release those emergency brakes and then the car goes. Have you ever had that experience before? Most of us go through life with the brakes on, holding back, not giving all that we have, not sharing all of ourselves. Most of us go to our graves still holding on rather than releasing it. What are some of those things that keep us from releasing it? Because of past experiences, past advice, past pain, we look back thinking, well, it didn't work out then, it probably won't work out now. Many people get confused, mixing their performances with who they are. I was reading Pat Riley, the coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, and you're going to like this quote. After the Trailblazers had blown them out of the water, and I'm sure he said this last night, they asked him, how do you feel? He said, tonight we were exposed for what we are right now. See that? If my speech tonight doesn't work, it doesn't mean that I'm a bad speaker. It means that what I didn't work tonight. I've got to separate what I do from who I am. And I've got another shot. See, the last chapter to your life has not been written yet, and it doesn't matter about. What happened yesterday doesn't matter. It's not about the things you've done that you feel guilty about. If you wouldn't do it today, you're convicting an innocent person. You've been reborn to a new state of consciousness. As they say, if we knew better, we would do better. And so you would begin to decide, I'm not going to be that tonight. I remember telling someone, and they asked me to repeat it. I was interested in going into broadcasting. I'm adopted, and that was my way out. I wanted to make my mama proud of me. I was proud and very much appreciative of what she had done for my brother, my sister, and me. That was my way out. I went over to the radio station and told the guy that I was interested in broadcasting. He looked at me, my straw hat, and my overalls. He said, do you have any broadcasting background? I said, no, sorry, I don't. He asked, what do you do? I said, I cut glass. He said, young man, what kind of work do you do? I told him, I work on a garbage truck. He replied, well, we don't have any jobs for you. But I decided that this was something I was going to do. I decided I want to stop the book. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to do this. I started going to the radio station every day, developing a relationship with the people who were doing what I wanted to do. And that's what I encourage you to do wherever you want to go. Find people who are doing it the way you want to do it and develop a relationship with them. When I decided to pursue this path, I wrote letters to Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, Zig Ziglar, Dennis Waitley, giants in this field, and I told them this is what I wanted to do, that I had been following their careers, and asked for their help. Dr. Norman Vincent Peale answered my letter. He did an article on me, he wrote about me in the most recent book he issued, and did many broadcasts about me. I wanted to develop a relationship and rapport with those people who were achieving the things I wanted to achieve. By the same token, I would go to the radio station and develop relationships with the people there. They used me as the errand boy if they needed some food or someone to pick up entertainers who came into town. I'd pick up the entertainers at the airport, the Temptations, singing My Girl, Jerry Butler, singing For Your Precious Love, Sam Cooke, singing Darling You Send Me. I would pick up the entertainers and drive them around in the disc jockeys' big Cadillacs, even though I didn't have a driver's license. But I was acting like a hatter every day. I used to go home and work on my communication skills, developing myself. Whitney Young said, it's better to be prepared for an opportunity and not have one than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. Start working and developing yourself now. Prepare yourself for what it is that you want because you expect to get it. When the disc jockeys were in the control room, I would go in and watch them, developing trust with them. They'd let me stay and I would observe them working the controls. When you want something out of life, don't worry about how you're going to get it. How is none of your business. The most difficult thing is the whole vision, the whole love issue. So there I was at the radio station. A guy was on the air and he started to drink. His name was Rock. I was outside the window looking at him, watching him. Hungry and ready, I learned pretty soon. The phone rang and it was the general manager. I answered, hello. He said, this is Mr. Klein. I said, I know. He said, if Rock can't finish his program, he's slurring his words. Can you work the controls until one of the other disc jockeys comes in? Would you call them? I said, yes, sir. I hung up the phone and thought, now he must think I'm crazy. I called my mom and my girlfriend, Cassandra. I said, why, I'll come out on the front porch and turn up the radio. I'm about to come on the air. I waited about 15 minutes. I called him back and said, Mr. Klein, I can't find anybody. He said, well, why don't you go ahead and work your controls until they get there and don't say anything? I said, yes, sir. I couldn't wait to sit down at that turntable. Mustafa, I said, look out, this is me, I'll be trouble. P. Les Brown, a plan. Papa, there will be none before me, and there will be none after me, therefore that makes me the one and only. You're insane. Don't love Domingo. Certified, bona fide, then double qualified to bring you satisfaction and a whole lot of action. Look out, baby, I'm your love man. I was already shaking somebody's hand on your right, 11th state. You've got to be hungry. Where are y'all? Somebody else wants to be persistent about what it is that they want to achieve. Alexander Graham Bell said, what this power is, I cannot say. All I know is that it exists, and it becomes available only when a man or woman is in that state of mind in which he or she knows exactly what he or she wants and is fully determined not to quit until they find it. When our children are learning how to walk, how many times will your baby attempt to walk and fall? And you just think, shut it down, don't try anymore. No, you call it 20 times and they fall, busting their lip and everything, but you wait. When will the baby walk? It will walk when it's ready. That's when it will walk. When will you be known nationally as the motivator? I'll be known when I know that's what I'll be known for. Don't get caught up in saying, well, I've tried it 4 or 5 times and things didn't work out. If there's something that you want and you have hope and resolve, you've got to do whatever is necessary. And when you give the best you can, and that's not enough, you must do what is required. Don't give up on yourself so quickly. Many people give up on the 1-yard line. If they had the determination just to keep on going, it's a funny thing about life. If you're home one day and someone is knocking on your door and you say, I don't want to be bothered today, and that person just keeps on knocking, can you believe that fool is still knocking? Pretty soon you say, what is it? What do you want? And that's how you've got to be about your dream.